God of War Ragnarok! Yeah, what an amazing game. God of War and God of War Ragnarok, 2018 God of War and God of War Ragnarok are two best games in the franchise, which says a lot because I'm a huge Greek mythology lover. I like Norse mythology too, but Greek will always remain my favorite. It's my childhood. And yet somehow the two games that take place in Norse mythology are still my favorite in the franchise. Which says a lot because I love the whole franchise. Like, already the Greek mythology games were some of my favorite games ever. But the Norse ones are just better, which shows like what a huge achievement they are. I will have to do a ranking of God of War games someday. But right now, let's talk about God of War Ragnarok! The story of God of War Ragnarok is great, like it was of the previous God of War. It continues an amazing story of the previous game and expands on it so much and takes it in various different directions. Main villain this time is Odin, who's possibly even more evil than Zeus from the Greek era, which says a lot. I also love the relationship between Kratos and Atreus. Their father-son dynamic is just so great, and it was already fantastic in the previous game, and I love how it gets carried over into this game. Freya is filled with vengeance against Kratos for killing her son Baldur. She wants to kill Kratos, though the story later goes in a very different way than some might expect. I will not spoil it here though. I will say one more thing I loved about this story. I love also how we get more references to the previous games that took place in Greece. It very much confirms continuity and that's indeed the same Kratos that we knew. Though we already knew that from the previous game, which also had a lot of references to the Greek games. The gameplay and combat are great. We start with two interchangeable weapons from the previous game, an axe and Blades of Chaos. I use those weapons very interchangeably. Both weapons have merits. I also loved how there are moments where you get to play as Atreus. Enemies are great. People complained how the previous game lacked enemy variety. I personally never felt this way and never had this problem, but this game admittedly has bigger variety. Boss battles are fantastic and epic. There still aren't that many of them, but few that are some of the best bosses in God of War history. Kind of like in the previous game, there also weren't that many bosses, but few that were some of the best ones. I will talk about 3 boss fights here that really stood out to me. I loved the battle with Thor in the beginning. It truly reminded me of an encounter with Baldur in the previous game, but it was even better than that, and so much more epic. Like, Thor is so powerful. And the battle with the dragon was also great. And look at that amazing dragon design. It's literally one of my favorite dragon designs in any video game. And I also loved Heimdall. This boss fight was a lot of fun and also it awakened the old Kratos from the Greek mythology games. Plus, Heimdall was a real jerk actually, and beating him up and defeating him was so much fun and it was so satisfying. Overall, this game has great boss battles too, like God of War in general. I love how the game expands on the Norse mythology. It does make some changes, but again, it also made quite a few changes to the Greek mythology as well. I love how the game introduces both Odin and Thor. I already talked about them quite a lot in the video. It also talks about Ragnarok a lot, hence the title. We also get Fenrir the wolf, the son of Loki. Since the previous game revealed Atreus was Loki, I love how they came up with a rational and logical explanation of how Loki can be Fenrir's father, but again, I will not spoil it here. And we also get a new character, Angrboda, from Norse mythology too. She plays a pretty big part in this story. Yeah, the expansion that was made to Norse mythology is simply amazing. The environments are also great and immersive. You get to explore all 9 realms from Norse mythology this time, including Midgard, Asgard, Helheim, and Vanaheim and Valhalla as well. The environments there are simply beautiful and very diverse. Now finally, I talked about everything positive about the game, now one small negative, if there are any negatives at all. It doesn't take away really any point from the game in any way, but I still want to talk about it. I feel like the 2018 game is still the best entry in the series, while this one is close second. Admittedly, that might be because I had much higher expectations from this one, because this game retained everything that made the previous game great, as I already said, but at the same time, I wouldn't say it improved on it. Everything literally feels the same. The gameplay is the same, and when people call the game DLC, I see what they meant. The game made no changes or improvements to the previous game. Even with the boss battles, there are still not that many of them. The few that are admittedly super amazing and some of the best in God of War history, but overall there aren't that many of them. So in other words, the game didn't really improve much on the previous game. It just kept everything that made the previous game amazing the same instead of improving on it. Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because admittedly, it was already hard to improve on the previous game, because that's how amazing it was. So, God of War Ragnarok truly is a masterpiece of the game, and it competes with Elden Ring as the best game of the year. I guess Elden Ring by a tiny margin edges it out, because Elden Ring is an original game, while God of War Ragnarok is part of the franchise. Admittedly one of my favorite franchises, but still part of the franchise. But both games are amazing. Best games of 2022 and some of the best games ever, and some of the best entertainment of 2022. 2022 is a pretty good year for entertainment, I must say. Okay guys, thank you for checking out this video. Press the like button, please subscribe to this channel, and I will talk to you soon in another video. Talk to you later, bye!